Imagine if the world's most sophisticated fighter jet could be switched off like a television set from halfway across the globe. It sounds like something from an espionage thriller. European warplanes soaring through the skies one moment, then rendered electronically useless the next by a classified code transmitted from Washington. This unsettling notion of an American kill switch embedded in the F-35 has begun circulating through defense ministries, raising very real questions about sovereignty and control. The rumor hasn't been confirmed, of course, and I think it's most likely speculation. But still, a large number of people believe it because I can say their underlying concerns are justified. No nation wants to discover mid-crisis that its fighter jets are effectively on loan, rather than fully owned. While America may not possess a real-time switch to disable aircraft, it doesn't need one. It controls something equally powerful: logistics. Much of modern warfare revolves around control, but control extends beyond munitions and aircraft to supply chains and software code. To be clear, nobody anticipates the US suddenly becoming hostile, but the dependency itself is viewed as a vulnerability. Rumors don't require proof in the end. They only need timing and an anxious audience. Trump's continued mixed messaging regarding NATO's Mutual Defense Pact doesn't help matters. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is currently engaged in damage control, attempting to reassure allies with limited success. Some European media outlets are calling this NATO's deepest crisis. Others see it as a timely reminder not to let a good crisis go to waste. France has taken steps to increase Rafale production capacity. These days, Macron is calling on European countries to replace American-made military equipment, such as the F-35, with French-made alternatives. These are the nuanced developments, the match that lit the fuse, happening largely unnoticed. Of the 74 media outlets covering this story, most are from France, with only one from the United States. I use ground news to stay informed about developments. Their tools allow me to compare local and regional sources and form my own opinion. I can't emphasize enough how important this is, which is why I asked Ground News to sponsor this video. I recommend checking out their blind spot page. They share many interesting stories that other news sources often miss due to biased reporting. Europe's assumption of American permanence is being reassessed, and the F-35 sits at the center of everything. But this crisis has little to do with the aircraft's performance. It's all about political framing. Trump has challenged long-standing diplomatic norms, made military assistance conditional, and questioned NATO's Article 5. While he may have valid arguments in his view, this friction has now triggered an irreversible political shift. Washington has begun to make European countries consider whether it is wise to tie European security so heavily to American technology, and this lack of trust is reflected in the frequency of procurement of American technology. In other words, procurement behavior is shifting in another direction. Europeans are openly reconsidering the unthinkable, abandoning the F-35. In March 2025, Portugal fired the first shot. Its defense minister canceled F-35 acquisition plans, stating Washington cannot be trusted as an ally. Just days later, Canada, once a loyal U.S. ally and F-35 development partner, created its own waves. Canadian officials announced they were re-evaluating their options and negotiating with rival jet manufacturers from Europe. For context, Canada has an F-35 contract worth approximately $14 billion for 88 aircraft. Their second thoughts demonstrate that even signed agreements aren't sacred when political winds shift. Meanwhile, Denmark is regretting its F-35 order. A Danish procurement official wrote on Twitter that the American planes pose a security risk and implied that Europe should avoid them if possible. But the dominoes kept falling. In Germany, political and Airbus lobbyists are pressuring the federal government to reconsider planned F-35 purchases. Germany had agreed to acquire approximately 35 F-35s to replace aging Tornado jets, a multi-billion-dollar deal. Simultaneously, lawmakers in France seized this moment to present their own fighter jet, the Rafale, as an alternative. After all, Dassault has no kill switch of any kind. Similar whispers are widespread across Europe. Policymakers are asking the same question. Do we really want to be in a position where a phone call from Washington could ground our Air Force? Nobody truly believes the U.S. will suddenly turn against its allies. However, the fact that transatlantic unity is now being questioned is itself a risk. The F-35 program isn't just about aircraft. It's about software pipelines, encrypted logistics systems, and spare parts supplied through a network controlled primarily by U.S. entities. In reality, purchasing an F-35 means entering a long-term strategic dependency. The same principle applies to all other American-made weapons. In recent years, approximately two-thirds of European defense procurement has gone to U.S. suppliers. This reflects the strategic trust the future government places in an ally it can leverage. It's no surprise that Europe is exploring ways to stand more firmly on its own feet by purchasing European-made jets like the Swedish Gripen or French Rafale. Though unproven, the kill switch theory thrives in this climate of distrust. It reflects a shift in European thinking, a growing recognition that digital and logistics control in modern warfare can be as decisive as firepower. And so Europeans are hedging their bets. From a technical standpoint, the F-35 is one of history's most complex military platforms. It's not just an aircraft, it's a flying mainframe. Each jet runs millions of lines of code, receives daily encrypted updates, and relies on operating systems for diagnostics, logistics, and analytical maintenance. The most critical functions pass through mission data files, and control over this digital infrastructure rests exclusively with the Americans. Even when exported, the aircraft's mission data files are updated and managed through secure U.S. channels. This infrastructure was designed with a centralized network in mind to facilitate interoperability among allies. There is no code that allows the engine or flight controls to be remotely shut down with a single click. If such a feature existed and was discovered one day, it would cause massive outrage and effectively kill the export market for all American weapons. For this reason alone, it's hard to imagine the Pentagon deliberately building such a backdoor. The risk would far outweigh any theoretical advantage. However, the absence of a real-time switch doesn't mean the absence of control. If the aircraft's mission data files are disrupted, intentionally or otherwise, the operational readiness of European air forces declines. For example, without updated mission data files, the F-35 wouldn't know which signal sources to expect and how to respond to them. Its sensors would struggle to detect enemy aircraft and missile threats, and its stealth flight paths couldn't be optimized to evade enemy radar detection. The aircraft's combat effectiveness would diminish in every respect without timely updates to these files. To be clear, the F-35 could still fly and fire, but it would be deprived of most of its fifth-generation capabilities. So without American approval, Europe's F-35s couldn't operate with real-time intelligence and threat recognition data. Given the aircraft's high price, most air forces would prefer to keep jets in hangars rather than risk losing them in an active combat zone. Consequently, a direct kill switch is unnecessary. I don't think the Pentagon needs this. Any interference with the mission data files will inevitably ground the F-35, if not immediately. Within weeks or months, Europe's Air Force will literally collapse, no epic confrontation required. Washington's real leverage lies here, not in a Hollywood-style shutdown button, but in a slow, boring logistics kill switch. So while F-35 operators needn't worry about a secret self-destruct signal being sent to their aircraft, they must acknowledge that owning an F-35 means the U.S. retains some form of veto power over the jet's operability. In fact, this is written into the aircraft's contract. A report in Stern magazine claims to have obtained a copy of the classified contract Germany signed for its F-35s. The document states that the Pentagon reserves the right to terminate or suspend services, if required by United States national interests. Undoubtedly, this would require an exceptional and urgent crisis, but the vague language still leaves too much room for interpretation. It didn't help that this coincided with reports that Trump suspended military aid and intelligence to Ukraine to force negotiations with Russia. For Europeans, this signaled Washington's willingness to use critical support as a bargaining chip, exactly their fear regarding the F-35. If they can do this to Ukraine, maybe one day they can do it to the rest of NATO, they thought. The Pentagon has since issued a statement denying the emergency halt button rumors, but its reputation has been damaged. From this perspective, the emergency halt button isn't a button at all. It's a tangible, very real thing. It's not located on the aircraft itself, but in the support infrastructure. For Europe, this raises difficult questions. If maintaining sovereignty means reducing technological dependence, then Europe's shift from American technology to European-made alternatives becomes a strategic necessity. And it seems European countries are slowly realizing this. But doing so will require time, investment, and industrial restructuring that may not happen quickly. For now, F-35s will continue flying with America's approval. But the aircraft carries a silent warning. Operational freedom is constrained not by electronics, but by software access. And as history shows, access can be revoked. Faced with this uncertainty, lobbyists for rival aviation giants like Airbus and Dassault see themselves as the biggest winners and are promoting their aircraft as European alternatives. America now risks losing not tens of billions, but perhaps billions of dollars. That's how things work in geopolitics. Sometimes a well-told lie can be more deadly than a missile, unfortunately. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care until our next analysis.